Shabbat Shalom. we haven't been working with the Shabbos word today. There's the sweetest story that comes to my mind about this. Jack used to often play with Shlomo Carlebach, and there was a Shlomo Carlebach moment when he was characteristically late, because if any of you ever were in those circumstances, he would often arrive at a concert easily 45 minutes late, not 15. When Jack was and the band with the backup, that was not such a big problem, because he played. And then Shlomo would come strolling down into the hall. A characteristic thing that he would do is he'd go up to each person and he'd say, and so finally somebody would say, But Shlomo, is it?
It's a good thing. It's a good thing.
It's not London. And he would look and he'd say, boy, when I see you, it's London. Good going, Deb. Thank you for joining us this morning for what I hope will be an improvisational adventure and experiments in Jewish prayer. Because that's what I was about to say what my rabbin has been, but that's not it. It's really, I think, in some ways what my life has been, an improvisational adventure in Jewish prayer. It's taken many twists and turns, and that adventure has been informed by extraordinary teachers and a remarkable holy Hazzan companion. So in my shul, we are a Rabbi Hazzan team. We're what's sometimes called a spousal hire. We're a Rabbi Hazzan team. And we both love the tefillah, the immersion in the deep waters of Jewish prayer. Our mission is to make Jewish prayer alive for ourselves and for all of the people whom we love. Jewish prayer is one of the most powerful spiritual technologies for heart and soul opening that we have ever found. And so we are in love with the inflections and rhythms of Jewish prayer. A smidgen about ourselves so you'll know a bit of how we came to be doing this, how that unfolded for each of us, because our stories inform how we arrived here. So, I don't know, any of you New Yorkers? Sort of.
Great neck.
My family made the first Hajj from the Lower East Side to Brooklyn, the Promised Land. They're going in Brooklyn, East New York. It was Deutsche Yiddish Center. Yiddish was the only language that was spoken. And among my friends, I think I am the last remaining person who actually saw horse-driven pushcarts. And the guy with the barrel on his back calling out in Nusach, a pickle, a nickel, a shtickle. A pickle, a nickel, a shtickle. The rhythms and inflections of Yiddish in that Yiddish-speaking world were like the rhythms and inflections of prayer. They seeped into me, even though my parents were among the modern generation that would only speak Yiddish when they didn't want the kids to understand. Darn. My mom came from a somewhat traditional background. My dad was an ardent, Brit, secular Zionist Jew. He didn't have much room in his heart for God after slogging through Germany and France under General Patton and all the things that you can imagine that a young man lived through and saw. But on my father's side and my mother's side, that rich, dense, Yiddish inflected, traditional Jewish life. So I often say I lived in a glatt, kosher, non-Shabbat Shabbos house, but it was Shabbos in my father's house next door. I grew up in Young Israel, Jackson Heights, and learned to daven in the Ezrat Nashim through the the women in those days in the Ezrat Nashim of Young Israel of Jackson Heights, Queens, were mamish daveners. Yes, there were children running around, and yes, there were kids' needs to be attended to, but they were mamish daveners. So again, the inflection of mamish davening just seeped in. In my adult life, I have to say, even after it became clear that I was no longer going to be in the Orthodox world, young Israel meant Woodstock. I searched for environments in which prayer was real, in which the rhythms and inflections of Jewish prayer could again crack open my heart. And that wasn't so easy to find. And let me tell you, there's a lot of people out there. They call themselves unaffiliated Muslim, but also in our shuls, who are still hoping. They're still yearning to discover that something can happen for them inside Jewish prayer that touches them, where they long to feel, where they long to come alive. And Jack will tell you a little bit about his background, which is also interesting, and is how we got together. And then we're going to, with your permission, experiment. And I'll tell you a little bit more in a minute about how the experiments began to unfold for us that we'll share with you today.
My folks were Europeans. They escaped the Nazis in '41 and got here. And my mom was English. My dad came from Hungary. He grew up pre-World War I in the old organic culture, the original Eastern European, small-town Jewish culture. And he happened to have a fantastic natural ear, was never trained as a Hazzan, but he probably could have been. Had an incredible memory and remembered all of the musaf of his youth from growing up there. I got to grow up with that here in New Jersey and various other points in the Northeast as we moved around. Eventually, to skip a couple of steps, I ended up going to JTS, and I thought I knew a lot, and it turned out I actually did know a fair bit, but Max Wohlberg had me organize it and showed me the underpinning for how it all works. Skipping a couple more steps, I spent 20 years doing hard time in conservative shuls.
Sure.
And I never feeling kind of just a little bit frustrated occasionally. I could perform chazonos, to my heart's content by and large, but even I knew that it wasn't by itself enough to do the job for the folks sitting there. And I really never got terribly far. I remember one time with the rabbi, and this is Boston suburbs, I was feeling frustrated enough to actually talk to the rabbi about it, because we were wearing black robes and standing up, like that. And I said, do you think we could try doing something different with services to make them more accessible? He said, what? And I could feel my sphincters immediately tightening up, and I said, how about a different melody for the Chadodi? Oh, okay. And then I had a developing relationship over the course of time with Zalman Schachter, who's kind of the godfather of Jewish renewal. He was the Leonardo da Vinci of Jewish life in the 20th century. A fabulous, multi-talented individual who had a long vision for what could be. And I ended up living in Philadelphia, 2 blocks from Zalman. We bought a house and started developing what he called Davenology, which is the skill set of how to make tefillot actually communicate and work. The whole concept of the community as a vessel to work together to open something bigger than we are. And there you go.
And Reb Zalman's experiments in his Davenology lab were truly extraordinary. On weekdays and on Shabbos morning, he would gather a small circle of his Imagineers. Typically, we would think we were coming to daven Shabbos morning or daven a weekday service with them. But more than frequently, rather than davening through a whole service, he would hone in on a word or a phrase or a shtickle of tefillah, and we would work it and work it and work it for hours, exploring different ways in. What is that word or phrase or that shtickle of tefillah intending to accomplish? Where does it live in your body? What would it look like if we danced it, if we moved it, if we chanted it, if we mantraed it, if we gave each word 6 seconds and slowed it way down, allowing the flavor and the taste of the word to roll around in the mouth and the tongue and then sink down into the heart. 18 years ago, Reb Zalman, along with Jeff Roth, who was the director of the Alat Chaim Jewish Spirituality Retreat Center, engaged Jack and myself and our colleague Rabbi Sean Zevit to take the Davenology work further and create a training program. You have the flyer for it there. We called it the Davening Leadership Training Institute. And when we have, over 18 years, we have had 9 cohorts. Each cohort is around 60 people. So we have trained over 400 lay and ordained leaders of Jewish prayer. Participants range from wonderful folks who are reading Kabbalat Shabbat Havarot in their living room to rabbis of major Reform, conservative, and Reconstructionist and unaffiliated congregations. In that spectrum, from lay to professional, from living room Kabbalah to big shul, we form the most extraordinary living, learning prayer community ever. I'm going to ask Matt to say a word for a moment, but I wanted to just read to you how we describe the work, because that is the work that we want to take us into today. And it's why we were granted the opportunity for, really it's a bit of a double session, knowing that not everyone can stay for all of it, and if you need to slip out in order to meet another obligation, we send you with our blessing. What we said, and here I invite you to feel into these words and see if they resonate with your own truth. We said, prayer can be electric and alive.
Prayer can touch the soul, burst forth a creative celebration of the Spirit, and open deep wells of gratitude, longing, and praise.
Prayer can connect us to our living source and to each other, enfolding us in love and praise, wonder, gratitude, awe, and thankfulness.
Jewish prayer, in its essence, is soul dialogue and calls us into relationship within and beyond. We intuitively know when it's working.
We intuitively know when Jewish prayer is working. Through the power of ancient and modern words and melodies, we venture into deep emotion. We find longing, sorrow, hope, wholeness, connection, and peace. When guided by skillful leaders of prayer and ritual, our complacency is challenged. We break through outworn assumptions about God and ourselves. We emerge refreshed and inspired to meet the challenges our lives offer. As rabbis, educators, Hazzanim, prayer leaders, we aspire towards meaningful prayer and ritual. But how? How do we learn to create transformational spiritual experiences that will revitalize our congregations and our chavilot? How do we do that? We want it. We want it with all our hearts. We want Jewish prayer to be a vehicle of transformation in which we find sorrow and longing and hope and wholeness that challenges our complacency and leaves us refreshed and revitalized to do holy work in the world. That is our work. That is the avodah that calls us. All of the experiments are in the service of that avodah. In the R&D lab, the research and development lab that is our congregation, we work with a circle of lay leaders to continually work the research and development, to explore, sometimes where no doubter has gone before. And of course, some experiments release the gift that they have to offer and aren't keepers. And others, wow. Matt, are you willing to
sure.
say a few words, and then we're going to take, and then we'll, as they say, Scotty, take us in.
So, after going through 5 years of JTS, I had two things that had stuck with me. One was that I had a lot of knowledge. I learned to daven, learned to feel comfortable leading others and with various melodies. But on the one hand, I felt that a lot of the prayer that I was doing was symbolic. It symbolized who I was as a Yid, but I wasn't always able to bridge it into expressing what was actually in my heart, and especially helping other people to do that. And the second thing was that all through my JTS experience, I kept looking for people who wanted to talk to God. Because that was really basically what I was there to do. I went to HUC, took classes there looking for it. I took classes at the Christian seminary, finding a couple people. I think Henry Rosenblum said, "Oh, Matt, he took some classes at JTS." And then I came out, and I still wanted a little more. I wanted to keep growing and finding something that would really lead me on my spiritual life and also keep me growing as a davener. And so I stumbled across some of the programs that Aleph, Alliance for Jewish Renewal, was doing, and across the LTI. And it gave me a whole toolkit for getting to the emotional place that I wanted to go with my relationship with God, and where I also wanted to take other people. I had Nusach, I had Nigunim, a little Karlbach, a little this, a little that, but it was really the flexibility and the intentionality about what is this word, what is this part of the liturgy doing, and what are the tools I have to really make it come alive, whether it's this meditation or the flow of this prayer, or the flow of this melody, or where is the silence. all of that mindfulness about the craft and the art of allowing, the physical, the emotional, the intellectual, and the spiritual pieces of davening to all come together. That's where I needed skillfulness, leadership ability. And so I ended up going to the LTI. It was the 7th cohort, and it was really transformational for me, not only just in the skills, but in the friendships. It was a great cohort that year. I had Basia Schechter, Shir Yaakov, and Jesse Romer, and a whole bunch of other great musicians, nonetheless, who are now friends and colleagues. And I also met my wife there, which was pretty good. So, but that
Justified the whole thing, right?
it really did.
Totally worth it.
But really, the approach of getting to the essentials of where am I taking people emotionally and Jewishly, and what tools I have, it really continues to inform how I act as a cantor today and the choices I've made.
Sure.
Since in many synagogues, Hazanim lead the tefillot, what do the rabbis usually do?
All pages.
They just hold courses in that. The gematria page.
The gematria page number.
I don't think they
They don't.
aren't good at that.
Do you know this
We rise
gesture
to our
too,
strength.
probably?
Yeah.
The gesture with,
Yeah.
in our congregation, for the listening audience, the gesture is with the palms up. It means what? The congregation means rise, and with the palms down, so the congregation.
Maybe
means
it is.
They do more than that. They do more than that. They do a lot more than that.
Yes, I know. It's humor. It's the humor of the moment because
I understand
Yeah.
that the saying
In my
they do a lot more than
and I'm the rabbi, I do a lot with it.
that. I hope so.
There's a humorous way of saying, will the congregation please rise? Really, all of us. Because, you see, when you rise into prayer, it's more than slugging yourself from the seat. When you rise into prayer, it's a drawing of energy from the magma of the earth through the open channel of your neshama to raise the energy high. That's why Amidah is a powerful prayer posture, just as Yeshiva is a powerful prayer posture. It is not merely slumping in the chair, exhausted from having stood too long, not understanding what is happening, but an opportunity to draw energy into the kahal through the open channel of your soul. Look, with your permission, can we let's playfully work with some morning blessings and see what happens. You have a siddur. In my Aleph world, one of the things we are very vested in is creating siddurim that are very user-friendly. In part so that you don't have to call pages, which is something that I rarely do. Because the pages of the siddur are set up so that at a glance you can see where you are. And it's only if we're skipping many pages that I'll slip a page number in order to clue people who are less familiar. So, of course, as the rabbi who sometimes says we rise together, I've always wanted. I always wait for the congregants to call out, "How high, Rabbi?" So, Baruch Hashem. Will the congregation please rise? Let's take a stretch. You guys know the brachas. You don't even need this support, but a way in which we can work morning blessings. In my environment, of course, not very formal. I actually frequently invite people to stretch into prayer, especially we're gathered on Shabbos. I invite people to stretch through any of the tight places in the body, any place that tension has stored itself over the heat, sound effects are welcome. And in order to make the morning blessings really meaningful for people, I'll leave little explanations in, and also invite those for whom the Hebrew is not their natural davening language to daven in English. So one of the things that we'll work a little bit with today is that blend of Hebrew and English davening that Reb Zalman taught us and that we have woven into the fabric of our prayer. So that stereophonically, the Hebrew and the English are davened together in the same melodies. Because to rob the English of the Nusach is a way of telling people,
That it's not real.
that the English isn't real. You understand that? Because the music is the carrier wave of the emotion of the tefillah. And so we take the carrier wave away from those for whom the translation is their point of access. You're robbing the people of the emotional foundation of the prayer. So we're going to weave a little Hebrew and English and see how we do that together. So again, we always start with a good stretch, and we'll be, for the moment, singing we are sort of a little bit pretend Shabbos. You want to take us in weekday to Sukkah Shabbos? Shabbos.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לסביב בינה להבחין ביום ובין לילה.
You make us conscious beings. So who are going to be my English? The English choir. Okay? So slide the English in at the end of the cadence of the Hebrew. Right? Here. Yeah.
Instead of the Amen.
Right, instead of the Amen, and then the Amen comes in after the English. Got it? Okay. Yeah.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שעשני בצלמו.
You made me in your image.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שעשני בן חורי.
Good stretch out. Yay.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שעשני ישראל. אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם פוקח עברי.
Gentle hands, you give your eyes a little stroke. Open our eyes.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם מלביש אדוני. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם מתיר אסורים. אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם זוקף כפופים. אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם רוקע הארץ על המים.
Spread waking consciousness over the watery world of dream time.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שעשה לי כל צורכי.
I can't always get what I want, but if I try sometimes, I'll get what I need.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם לפי מצדדיו.
You never myself.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, עוזר ישראל בגבורה. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, עוטר ישראל בתפארה. אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, הנותן ליעף כל אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, המעביר שינה בעיניי ודמומה מעפעפה.
And slumber from my bed, that I might awake to the wonder of life. And for all of these blessings we say